Sins of the fathers.
John Gagin is accused of molesting and raping boys as young as 4 years old over a period of 34 years.
Catholic lobbyists are extraordinary in their power. They were already situated with political ties, and then the clergy sex abuse scandal hit.
If you were sexually abused as a child in New York and have never pursued a case, don't wait.
Investigators say not only did the church there not stop the abuse, it didn't even report it.
Su santidad, intendo a influir la justicia argentina en el caso Grassi.
Welcome back to our channel. In today's video, we delve into a deeply concerning and complex topic: how predator priests avoid jail. Let's get started as we explore this distressing issue. Over the course of the last 20 years, the Roman Catholic Church has faced significant scrutiny due to an unresolved issue of child abuse.
39-year-old Father Gilbert Gothay has admitted that he sexually abused at least 35 boys,
which has cast a shadow over its reputation. This distressing problem has extended its reach across numerous countries, resulting in a global reckoning.
Sins of the fathers.
Recognizing the urgency and gravity of the situation,
Certainly sorry for any harm I've caused, and ashamed of everything that I did.
Pope Francis has taken proactive measures to address the issue.
Pope Francis has opened an unprecedented summit on sexual abuse in the Catholic Church with bishops from around the world. Francis opened the 4-day meeting by insisting that the church must listen to abuse victims.
With a firm belief in the guidance of the Holy Spirit, Pope Francis convened a momentous summit specifically dedicated to combating and addressing instances of sexual abuse. During this summit, he expressed heartfelt sympathy for the pain endured by survivors.
Dolor y la vergüenza que siento ante el daño irreparable.
Acknowledging the deep impact of such acts. In a pivotal development that transpired in 2021, the Vatican introduced new canon law to tackle the issue head-on. This significant legal reform encourages survivors to come forward and report instances of abuse, while explicitly prohibiting any form of cover-up. Many observers perceive this milestone as a potential turning point in the Church's commitment to transparency and justice. However, despite the promises of resolution, the Catholic Church is facing criticism from prosecutors and activists on the ground, particularly in the United States, where the number of abuse cases continues to rise. Astonishingly, the Church appears to be staunchly fighting against survivors in various ways.
Some of the dioceses sought to prevent the entire report from ever seeing the light of day. In effect, they wanted to cover up the cover-up.
One concerning aspect is the Church's active lobbying against legislation that seeks to create an environment where more victims can come forward and seek justice.
The abuse within the church and their response, particularly by some of the bishops who were engaged in the conspiracy and cover-up, was to go spend parishioner money to hire lobbyists.
By opposing such legislation, the Church inadvertently obstructs the path for survivors to share their stories and seek the accountability they deserve.
Su santidad, intendo a influir la justicia argentina en el caso Grassi.
Another troubling behavior is the Church's utilization of top lawyers to resist the disclosure of crucial documents.
Dioceses and the bishops fight like crazy in order to keep the release of documents to an absolute minimum.
The originating diocese will put their hands up and say, we didn't know anything, when in fact, they probably have a 2.5-inch thick file of allegations.
This resistance prevents the full extent of the abuse and cover-up from being exposed, further hindering the pursuit of justice and healing for survivors. This begs the question, why is the Catholic Church, an institution that has pledged to resolve this issue, engaging in actions that inadvertently shield pedophiles? It is a disheartening reality that the world's largest institution, which holds immense influence and moral authority, is inadvertently contributing to the protection of perpetrators. A pivotal moment in shedding light on this systemic problem within the Church occurred in 2002 when the investigative team at the Boston Globe newspaper, known as Spotlight, published a series of groundbreaking stories.
John Gagin is accused of molesting and raping boys as young as 4 years old over a period of 34 years.
These stories unraveled a distressing pattern of abuse and cover-up within the Archdiocese of Boston, serving as a turning point in public awareness and understanding of the issue. In response to the growing crisis, Pope Francis has made solemn commitments to address and eradicate child sex abuse within the Church. He has implemented clear guidelines on reporting cases and emphasized the importance of accountability. However, survivors groups express skepticism and doubt in the Church's ability to effectively police itself. In the United States, the issue of child sex abuse within the Catholic Church has become intertwined with politics.
Catholic lobbyists are extraordinary in their power. They were already situated with political ties, and then the clergy sex abuse scandal hit.
The ramifications of the scandal and the Church's response have sparked political debates and discussions. The handling of the crisis has raised questions about the influence of the Church within political spheres and the ways in which it affects investigations, legislation, and the pursuit of justice. It has been reported that the Catholic Church has allocated substantial financial resources, amounting to millions of dollars, towards lobbying efforts aimed at preventing statute of limitations reform. Such reform would enable individuals with historic abuse claims to come forward and seek justice. As the number of lawsuits filed against the Church continues to grow, it faces the prospect of an increasing financial burden due to the payouts required to settle these cases.
If you were sexually abused as a child in New York and have never pursued a case, don't wait.
More is coming out, especially here in the United States, as more states reform their civil statute of limitations and more survivors are able to come forward and share their stories of what happened. That means more settlements will eventually be coming.
When a case is brought forward, activists assert that dioceses often resist the release of documents that could potentially reveal years of abuse and mishandling within the Church.
What you need is all the evidence that the Church holds. Typically, the Church has the information needed to prove the case. They know what happened.
These documents hold the potential to shed light on systemic patterns of abuse, cover-ups, and inadequate responses to allegations. The tactics employed by the Catholic Church can present significant challenges for survivors of abuse.
Is the victims are traumatized by this institution, which is now telling them that they're not important enough to get the truth. And so this is very difficult for the victims. Some simply have to say, whatever settlement is possible, this has just got to end.
In October 2021, the French government published a highly critical report that revealed an alarming estimate. Over 330,000 children had been victims of sexual abuse committed by Catholic priests and lay members in France since 1950.
Investigators say not only did the Church there not stop the abuse, it didn't even report it.
This revelation served as a stark reminder of the magnitude of the issue, expressing his concern. The Pope addressed bishops, emphasizing the urgency of preventing such abuse from ever happening again.
Superiori religiosi a continuare a compiere tutti gli sforzi affinché drammi simili non si ripetano.
However, in the subsequent weeks, a prominent French bishop made remarks that ignited a contentious debate between the Church and the state. The bishop suggested that priests were not obligated to report instances of sexual abuse if the information was obtained through confession. The French government swiftly responded to these comments.
There is nothing stronger than the laws of the Republic in our country,
highlighting a fundamental clash between the Church's long-standing practice of protecting the seal of confession and the government's commitment to addressing and preventing child abuse. The seal of confession, a sacred tradition spanning thousands of years, prohibits priests from disclosing information obtained during confessions. Despite calls for change and progress in children's rights, the Vatican maintains a steadfast stance that some campaigners argue undermines the strides made in this regard. In the past, the Church's response to abuse allegations often involved a disturbing pattern of relocating accused priests to different parishes or even different countries.
There have been a lot of cases where priests have not only been moved state to state, but they've been moved overseas. The world is filled with this problem because of the sheer size.
This practice allowed perpetrators to evade accountability and potentially continue their abusive behavior. Disturbing cases serve as examples, such as an individual facing an international arrest warrant for child sexual abuse in France, seeking refuge in Lebanon, or an Italian individual wanted for sexually abusing 8 boys who was transferred to Mozambique. The concerning reality is that perpetrators who are not held accountable may continue to inflict harm on vulnerable individuals. However, it is important to note that not all countries have the necessary resources or capabilities to thoroughly investigate and address such allegations.
Plain to see that enforcement agencies in many developing countries are just absolutely nowhere near where we are, and we are not dealing with it properly.
One significant challenge is the lack of comprehensive data and awareness regarding the true extent of the problem on a global scale. Latin America, which boasts the world's largest Catholic population, has yet to conduct an independent inquiry into the issue of child abuse within the Church. To ensure the protection of children and the prevention of abuse, it is imperative to address these systemic challenges. Independent inquiries, comprehensive data collection, and resource allocation are necessary steps to shed light on the scale of the problem and provide justice for survivors. The need for public investigations into allegations of abuse within the Catholic Church extends beyond Latin America. Several European countries, such as Italy and Spain, have yet to conduct thorough and public inquiries into these matters. In some nations, where Catholicism holds a majority, survivors may feel trapped in an environment that makes it exceedingly difficult for them to speak up. After enduring years of silence, many survivors are now finding the courage to come forward and confront the abuse they experienced.
That abuse was happening during the time that I was growing up and discovering who I am as a person. So the whole coloring of my psyche was that I was evil and made this good holy priest sin.
The lasting trauma they carry with them can affect their lives for decades.
I came across a picture of myself with my perpetrator at the age of 48, and everything came flooding back. I just didn't want to be here anymore.
Highlighting the profound and long-standing impact of such abuse. As more cases and information come to light, the future of the Church rests heavily on its leadership. The actions and responses of Church leaders in addressing these allegations and implementing effective measures to prevent future abuse will shape the perception and trajectory of the institution. The path forward requires a collective effort to prioritize the voices of survivors, hold accountable those responsible for abuse, and implement robust safeguarding measures within the Catholic Church. Thanks for watching. Like this video, click the subscribe button, and remember to turn on your notifications. See you soon.